Meeting of the Carefree Town Council will come to order. Please take a silent roll call. We have one councilman who's with us by phone. Mr. Tony Geiger, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would just remind everyone, whether it's a council person up here or a member of the audience, when you come up to speak, speak into the microphone and so everyone at home can hear you, because I suspect there's, just like we have a lot of people here tonight, there's probably a lot of folks at home listening, or they will listen later. So first up is the consent agenda. All items listed here under are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Number one, approval of the September 2024 Town Council regular meeting minutes. So we do not have those in our packet. Item number two, approval of the October 1st, 2024 Town Council meeting minutes. We do not have those in our packets either. Item number three, acceptance to the public record of the October 2024 paid bills. Number four, approval of the cash receipts and disbursements for August 2024. Number five, approval of resolution 2024-14, appointing C.J. DiMaggio as town engineer for the town of Carefree, pursuant to Carefree Town Code section 3-1-1. Item number six, approval of a temporary street closure for a section of Ho-Hum Road on Saturday, November 30th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the Kiwanis Christmas for the Kids event and the Carefree Christmas tree lighting. Are there any comments or questions, or would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
So do we need to pull items 1 and 2 since they're not?
Correct.
And also C.J. DiMaggio, who is he replacing?
Oh, so, well, he replaced Mark Millstone, who left some time ago, and then we had a temporary. And so the spot's been vacant for probably 6 months. And we have a lot of work for the engineer to do, drainage studies related to the northeast corner today, related to other projects that are pending.
Okay.
So, and roads, the engineer does a lot of work here.
Thank you.
Sure. So I would entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 3, 4, 5, and 6.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? They pass unanimously. Thank you. Item number 7 is current events. So we have a few things to talk about. One, we had a coffee with a cop last week on the 7th. And we'll do it again in April. So it's smart. I don't have a firm date for you, but keep an eye out for it. We always get a handful of officers coming. The captain comes, and if there's things on your mind, it's a great time to ask questions and learn what's on his mind and what he's seeing. Carefree 40th anniversary. So we're down the home stretch. So there's only 2 more activities that are going on. First, Friday, November 29th, we have another movie in the pavilion. 7 to 9 p.m., so a 1984 vintage movie, Gremlins movie. So we have heaters, we have chairs, so come on out for that. It's the last time we'll do that. And then on December 7th is the culmination of the anniversary program. So we'll have a VIP candlelight concert, Saturday, December 5th, 5 to 8. So we'll send out information about how to purchase tickets for that next week. So you'll get something in the mail, we'll have it on our website. It's $40 a ticket. We really want to sort of focus on Carefree residents to come out, and it'll be a class act. We'll have appetizers from our local restaurants. We'll have a string quartet, some ballerinas, drinks. It'll be fun. It's a class act which suits our town. It's a great fit for us. Then on November 30th, we have Kiwanis Christmas. So you might remember that from last year. So from 10 o'clock to 4 p.m., Kiwanis Club of Carefree takes over the pavilion, and they have a kids event. They auction off, they give away 50 bicycles. This is great. And they have all kinds of things for kids, cotton candy and hay rides and face painting, balloon sculptures. But it's a great family event. And then, so that wraps up at 4. And at 5 o'clock, it's the night of our tree lighting. So at 5 o'clock, we have bell ringers from the Presbyterian Church, some carolers coming. At 5:30, we throw the switch on the tree. And then by 6 o'clock, we have entertainment in the pavilion. So some local student singers, the Jubilate Conservatory of Music, the Desert Cactus Kickers, and some other dancers. So it's really, November 30th is a big day, all day long here. And then another item, just to mention, the general plan. So the general plan was on the ballot of the election last Tuesday, and it passed. It passed. The county hasn't certified the vote, but as of this afternoon, it was 56.7 in favor and 43.3 opposed. So it passed, and from my perspective, that's a good thing. And so it's up to the county to certify the vote, and they'll probably do that in the next week or two, and then we certify the vote after that. Another really bright spot about that election is if you look at that county website, more than 92% of our residents turned out to vote. That's incredible. So congratulations to all of you. That's really cool. It's great. And lastly, I'd like to share some additional important news. So Candace French has accepted a position in Fountain Hills as their town clerk. And so this is kind of bittersweet news. It's sad for us, but it's great for Candace because I think it's great for your family, and it's just great for what you want to do in life. She's been with us for 11 years. She's been a part of the family. She's taken good care of us. She's been dedicated, worked hard, and we'll miss you. So thank you very much.
I have a question. How many people will we have to hire to replace you?
Actually, we've given a conditional offer to an amazing woman that I think you're going to absolutely love. She retired out of Glendale 2 years ago, so she has been through the arena fiasco. She has been through things that are just amazing. And for the last 2 years, she's been in private practice teaching municipalities how to write grants. So I think you're going to be really pleased with Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you for everything.
Yeah, really, thank you, Candace. Anyone else have any current events to announce? So hearing none, that closes current events. So now we'll get on to the meat of the agenda. Item number 8, presentation by the Maricopa County Associate of Governments, it's called MAG, sometimes we just refer to them as MAG, regarding the Pima Road Corridor Study. And we have Tim Stroh with us tonight and from MAG, and he'll fill us in. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members. I'm happy to be here today. As the mayor stated, Tim Stroh, Major Projects Manager with MAG. I'm managing the Pima Road Corridor Study. I'm also joined tonight by David Rukowski from Kimley Horn and Associates. He is the lead consultant for the study. So tonight, I'm going to quickly walk through, give you an update on where we are with the study. We also have a public meeting coming up here Thursday. It's actually going to be held in this room, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Next slide, please. So the Pima Road Corridor Study kicked off earlier this year, around June, July timeframe. We met with the city of Scottsdale and the town of Carefree regarding this corridor. Both cities have funding in our arterial life cycle program that is funded by Proposition 400. That probably sounds familiar. On the ballot last week was Prop 479, which was the extension of the half-cent sales tax for an additional 20 years. So that passed, so that will help pass. That will help fund our 20-year regional transportation plan moving forward. So right now, we still have Prop 400 money until the end of 2025. So the Carefree and Scottsdale both have funding in there. I believe Carefree has around $5.2 million for improvements to Pima Road, and Scottsdale has around $23 million for improvements to this corridor. So in a few slides, we'll talk about how Pima Road has developed over time. I'm sure all of you are very aware that it's been under construction for some time. Well, this is one of the last remaining segments that has not been studied yet or improved. And if you see on the screen there, that large green section of land, that's Arizona state land property. which we anticipate a significant number of homes to be built on that property here in the near future. And that'll dramatically change the number of vehicles that use Pima Road on a daily basis. So State Lands is one of the participating agencies for this study. The town of Carefree and Scottsdale are managing and leading this effort. Next slide, please. So the history of Pima Road, like I said, I think everybody in this room probably drives up and down this corridor several times a day. It's been under construction since 2007. It's slowly been improved from south to north, which makes sense. That's where most of the activity exists. The road has different number of lanes as you drive to north. It varies from 6 lanes to 4 lanes, and then up to 2 lanes in this study corridor that we're looking at today. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of the corridor and how it's operating today. So we talk and we do these studies of levels of service and how the corridor is doing. And this is ranked A to F like a report card, right? A is free flow of traffic. F is gridlock. You're ripping your hair out driving home every day. So you can see the yellow line, most of the corridor operating level service C, which is not bad. So you do experience a little congestion during the peak hours, but it's moving pretty good. To the south, at Lone Mountain to the south, it's operating level service D. So that's where you start to experience a little bit more congestion. There's cars backing up at Lone Mountain traffic or the signal at that location. But I want you again to think about that State Lands property that's coming in the future, right? These C's and D's are gonna turn to D's and E's or maybe even possibly F's, especially with the 2-lane footprint in this area. Next slide, please. So in addition to looking at Pima Road, we're looking at widening the road. So right now it's 2 lanes, or it's 1 lane in each direction, 2 lanes. So we're gonna look at opportunities. Me and the consultant team are gonna look at it, say, hey, what could we widen this to? We're gonna do an existing conditions analysis, a 2035 analysis, and a 2050 analysis. So we have all that information that we can put into the models, run it, see how this is gonna operate in the future. We wanna get this right the first time to be able to accommodate future growth. So in addition to looking at widening opportunities, we're also gonna study intersections, and with a specific focus on Cave Creek Road and Stagecoach Pass. So City of Scottsdale has a roundabout first policy. So when they take a look at making improvements to intersections, they look at doing roundabouts first, and then they'll look at signalized intersections and other concepts. So as part of this process, we're gonna work with Kimley Horn on going through the list, see what works for this community. We wanna make sure that it fits in with the community and keeps that, that character as you're driving up the corridor. So we'll be taking a look at it, signalization, roundabouts, and other options. Next slide, please. So safety is an absolute priority for us on this project. So this is a snapshot. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but there's been over 70 accidents in this corridor, in this 4 miles of Pima Road in the last 5 years. So over a 5-year stretch. 40 crashes have occurred from Stagecoach Pass to Cave Creek Road intersection. So like I said, safety is a priority for us on this. We're gonna take a step back. When we talk about developing the corridor and looking at intersection improvements, we're gonna make sure we can help reduce these accidents in here. A lot of the crashes, there's 27 of them that are angled crashes. So that could be possibly somebody sitting at Cave Creek Road at the stop sign and somebody clips them going through, or maybe they're in the process of turning, get hit. 11 left turn accidents, 15 rear ends, 13 single vehicle accidents. So that could be distracted drivers, that could be due to lighting, that could be due to a variety of different issues.
Sorry, can you repeat, what was the time frame for this?
It was a 5-year
5
period.
years? Thank you.
Next slide, please. So here's a list of some of the potential improvements that we're gonna take a look at as part of this study. Like I said, we've talked about road widening, signalization, roundabouts, access management. So we could see also there's a vision for the corridor through the city of Scottsdale heading towards the town of Carefree, where there's gonna be a raised median in the middle with lanes on the outside, sidewalks, bike lanes, trails. You can kind of see the theme when you drive up off the 101. So we'll be looking at these different things, including lighting. Next slide, please. So like I said, the study kicked off this summer. We are right in we've almost wrapped up all of our data collection, and we're starting to look at future baseline conditions analysis. And then after our public meeting, we're gonna dive into alternatives analysis. Next slide, please. So like I mentioned before, we have a public meeting this Thursday to talk about existing conditions. So we're gonna present some of the slides you saw here tonight. We have a few additional ones we're gonna add. But it's really to talk about, actually you can click to the next slide, Gary, if you could. Thank you. The real purpose of Thursday's meeting is I want to talk to the residents in this community. In Scottsdale and Carefree, we're gonna have roll plot maps that we're gonna put out on tables. We're gonna have a lot of graphic boards. The community in this room drives that corridor every single day. I don't live in this area. You know, I can look at maps all I want and data on the slides, and I can drive up here every once in a while, but I want to hear from you guys, and I want to understand what issues do you see along this corridor, and talk about potential improvements, like what would you like to see happen. So the public meeting will start at 5 o'clock. We will give a presentation at 5:15, and then it's going to be an open house afterwards. And I want to let everybody know that if you're unable to make the meeting this Thursday, you can go to our website, which is listed on the screen. We have an online interactive comment map where you can go in there and drop a pin if it's safety or if it's speed or whatnot, drop a comment, type it up, submit it. My email address is also on the website. You can send me something. And then we also have a survey that you can take that'll be submitted to me and the project team. So this is one of 2 public meetings we're gonna have. After this one, we'll take all the comments, pull them together, start our future conditions analysis. And then this, probably next spring, maybe early summer, we will have another public meeting that'll be held in the city of Scottsdale where we'll talk about the draft alternatives. And then I'll circle back to this, present to the council afterwards to get approval on that. Next slide, please. Mayor Crane, that completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very well, thank you, Tim. Any questions or comments from the council?
When you're looking at the widening of Pima, obviously on the west side of Pima, there's not a lot of extra space because there's development. So are you looking at, because that's state land, maybe you have some latitude on expanding into that and widening? Is that how you're thinking about it, or?
Yeah, Mayor Crane, council members, that's a great question. So I believe, and David can correct me if I'm wrong, but we will be widening to the east of the center line for Pima Road. You're absolutely correct, towards the state land parcels.
Yeah, good question. Any other comments or questions? So I would just say, you folks in the audience, you may have received this in the mail, so this is like a notification of the Thursday meeting. So the Thursday meeting is here in the town council chambers. And there's also on the website, as Tim alluded to, a survey. So just like we went through surveys in the general plan. Go in there, it takes you, probably doesn't take 5 minutes. Go through and let them know what you think. Okay.
Do you also have, do you have your data from, say, 2030 and then beyond in terms of population and cars, et cetera?
Yeah, Mayor Crane, members of the council. So right now we're starting that process of taking the population employment, plugging it into the model, the traffic numbers. So right now we're frantically working on that as quick as possible, and we'll have that information pretty soon.
Okay. And that'll be on a website or something for?
Yeah, so the way the process works is, like, once we develop existing conditions and Town of Carefree's had a chance to review and approve it, City of Scottsdale, I've had a chance to review it, we'll post it on the website. So as things get approved, we'll post them on there so the public can take a look at it, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll see you Thursday.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Okay,
council.
thank you. All right, item number 9. Review, discussion, and possible action to accept the findings of the 2023-2024 fiscal year audit. Who's going to handle this?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, I'll handle it, and then I'll pass it off to our auditor. Every year, we go through the budget process in the spring, and the budget process produces this document, which explains how the public funds are invested in the community. I encourage the residents, if they have not picked this up, this is available online, and it explains in detail what money comes into the town and how it is expensed and invested in this community on an annual basis. We take a lot of time, a lot of effort goes into this every spring. We have a series of workshops. In the fall, we have a check and balance. We have an annual audit. And the objective of the annual audit, and there's a series of them, is to assure financial statements are free from material misstatements, to verify the appropriate accounting principles and practices are being used, to confirm compliant with the Governmental Accounting Standards Board as developed through the American Institute of Certified Accountants, and to guard against fraud and misuse in funds, and to provide additional level of transparency. That's what it's about. People want to know how the money is invested within the community and want confidence in how it's being done. I'm glad to report that once again, the audit is clean, the accounting practices are in order and free from misstatements. This doesn't occur overnight. A lot of it is attributed to the person to my right, Mr. Keene, who's our town accountant, and he works diligently every day, assuring that there's transparency and we document every transaction. And he does a wonderful job and has been servicing the community for the last 22, almost 23 years in this capacity. Judge Paris Gondola oversees our consolidated court, and there's a separate audit, much like the Utility Community Facility District, that is done for the court. That's part of the audit process, and Judge Paris Gondola is here and available for any questions. The town auditor is Jennifer Shields from Heinfeld Meach. She's available for any questions, and I'm sure she wants to make a few remarks here. The action is to approve Resolution 2024-13, which is accepting the audit reports for 2023-24, which is the town's municipal audit, the expenditure limit report. Once again, we have an expenditure limit. We're not the federal government where we could just spend. There's an expenditure limit to what we can spend in any given year. And so we have a report to validate that we didn't exceed that expenditure limit. This year it's about $12.4 million. Next year it'll be about $12.8 million. We also have the consolidated court audit available for the council and the community to review. That being said, be glad to address any questions. Once again, Jennifer is available to make a short presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for allowing me a few brief minutes to spend some time with you this evening to talk about the audit. As Mr. Neese said, I'd like to also give my kudos and thanks and appreciation to Mr. Keene and, of course, Miss French Contreras. We will, we wish you well as well. It's been 5 years that we've had the opportunity to work with the town doing the audits every year, and so through that process we do get to know one another a little bit, and so it makes the audit a little bit more fun and not just full of can I have this document please. There's an awful lot of that involved, and Jim actually takes care of most of that. So with respect to the audit itself, there are some required communications that I am going to share with you. Well, first of all, as Mr. Neese stated, the audit itself has a clean opinion, so it's an unmodified opinion. That means that there were no material misstatements that were found with respect to the financial statements, and that they were properly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. I'm also happy to report that there were no deficiencies in internal control that rise to a level that need to be reported to you all this evening. So no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the internal control environment. With respect to the actual audit report itself, what you'll notice if you pay attention in great detail, there was a change in presentation from the prior years, and that's simply due to the GASB standards that Mr. Neese referenced require that major funds be reported on and audited, and so in the past, for the past few years, there has only been the general fund, and then everything else was sort of lumped together. But for this particular audit, the HERF fund, because there was a significant amount of expenditures out of the HERF fund, that made that fund in particular rise to the level of a major fund. And so you'll see a separate column for that this year where you haven't in the past. And then also there was a new GASB standard that was implemented this year that required us to sort of present changes in that because the HERF fund had been a non-major fund, it became a major fund. So there's some additional reporting in there. And it looks like there's a restatement, but there is not an actual restatement due to a change, like due to an error or a correction. It is simply a restatement just because of a mandatory GASB reporting requirement. So I call your attention to that. In terms of the timeline, just so that everybody is aware, the process for the audit starts in the spring with the issuance of an engagement letter. And then we do fieldwork procedures. We were out on site in the month of August for 2-3 days at a time. We also perform the procedures for the court. I believe those procedures occurred in July. And then a draft of the audited financial statements are compiled by our team, and then they're presented to management for review and acceptance. And also, management writes the management's discussion and analysis, which is a labor of love for many individuals, but it goes through a lot of the information in terms of the changes that we saw from year over year. And it also presents information that can just give the reader of the financial statements an indication of how the town is performing financially over time. Other required communications are that there are certain estimates that occur within the financial statements. Those are things such as the depreciation of capital assets and or any receivables or things like that that might the receivables might come in differently than expected, but nothing out of the ordinary or unusual. We had no difficulties in performing our audit procedures, no disagreements with management about accounting practices. And then last but certainly not least, as the independent auditors, we are required to maintain compliance with our own profession's set of ethical standards and requirements, and we had no violations on our end with respect to our ethical requirements. So with that, I am happy to stand for any questions.
Well, thank you very much. I know just from talking to Jim, working with you and your firm has been a real pleasure for us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the council? Okay, this might be real easy for you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And Jim, good job. So if there's no comments or questions, I think we just move on to approving the resolution. This is Resolution 2024-13. So just to review, this is a resolution of the Mayor and Common Council of the Town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, accepting the findings of the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual audit for the Town of Carefree, Arizona, and the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court, and the annual expenditure limitation report for the Town of Carefree, Arizona for the year ending June 30th, 2024. So I entertain a motion for that.
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-13, accepting and approving the audit findings for the Town of Carefree, Arizona, and the Carefree Cave Creek Consolidated Court for the year ending June 30th, 2024, and accepting the annual expenditure limitation report.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any other comments before we vote? So hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Jim. So item number 10, review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2024-15, authorizing the mayor to sign the development incentive agreement between the Town of Carefree and CCS Crossroads LLC. So just to give you, that's why most of you are here tonight, just to give you a feel for how this will flow. So first, Mr. Probopek, our Economic Development Director, will kind of lay the groundwork. Then we'll have a spokesperson from Diversified Property speak. We'll talk about it amongst ourselves here on the Town Council. We'll open up to public comment. And then part of that public comment, we will ensure that the three council members elect have a chance to share their thoughts and opinions and questions. And we'll save them for the end of the public comment. Then it comes back to council, and we'll talk some more, and maybe we'll we'll have a vote and see where we go. Okay, so first, Mr. Popopek.
Yeah,
Floor
Mayor
is
and
yours.
Council, first of all, I just want to say apologize. I went to Vegas this weekend with my daughter, and I have come down with a wicked cold, so I don't want to, I know it's a full room here. I just want to be cautious. And I do hate wearing masks, so this is not fun for me. Yeah, happy to be here tonight. This is another milestone in us trying to get the development of this northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek completed. It has been something that has been on the agenda for a while within the town, and started actually back in about 2012 with the general plan. There was an amendment that was created that allowed this site to be zoned for commercial uses, and those commercial uses that were allowable generally were on parcels A and B of the site, and you can see on this map here, it's probably about approximately 20, a little bit more than 20 acres. On A and B, it was approved for retail and general commercial, and on parcel C, it was approved for office. And on the right, you can kind of see there's a wash that runs through this site, and there's going to be a little bit of conversation about this wash because it's integral to the conversation that we're going to have tonight. So as part of that zoning approval, there was an approved site plan, the comprehensive site plan that goes along with that. And so what I wanted to do was kind of just show the community and everybody that this is what was approved back in 2018 when the zoning was approved for the site. And so what we look for with any kind of project that comes to this site is something that is in compliance with what was approved through the zoning case. And as you can clearly see, it's retail on the A and B and office on the C part. And in total, we're looking at about 150,000 square feet in this. And so the retail, I believe it was 120, I can't, in that area there. And before I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the agreement, this is a good time. I think a lot of people just really want to hear about who the developer is. I just wanted to lay out the site. As far as the flow of this, we'll let the developer talk about themselves, talk about the project, how they kind of arrived to where they arrived to, and then I'll pick it back up from there and how we then responded to the requests they made.
Hello, everybody. Scott Hinsey, representing Diversified Partners. We're one of the development partners on this project. And with me tonight is also Sherry Koschel, who's with Empire Group, who is the current owner of the property and our development partner. We put a couple of slides together just to give you an intro on who we are and why we want to, oh, thank you, the clicker, and why we want to develop this property. So I'm just going to go through them real quick.
Oh, it's not? Well.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, next slide. So Diversified Partners, we are a commercial retail developer in Arizona. 95% of our projects are retail projects in the state of Arizona. We do some work in other states, but we've been around here for 3 decades doing retail projects all throughout the valley. As the suburbs have grown, we're doing little 2-acre deals, 100-acre projects, big boxes, small boxes, all sorts of retail projects all over town. And that's all we do. We don't do residential. We don't do industrial. We don't do multifamily. We are retail developers. So we have excellent relationships with tenants all across the country. And we pride ourselves on being able to do the right thing with our tenants and establishing those relationships that really last a long, long time. It's so easy to get something done with a tenant when you have a relationship with them, and you always run into hurdles, but when you're able to get through those hurdles with a strong relationship, it just makes a world of difference. Go ahead, next slide, Steve. This is our current site plan for the project. This is Carefree Quarter. So you'll see from what Steve had shown on 2 or 3 slides ago, it's very similar to what was approved in the 2018 zoning case. And one of the biggest parts or most intense parts of this project is the wash that kind of looks that brown color, that tan color, that kind of winds around the back of it as a buffer between the neighbors and the retail project. We're going to be talking about that wash quite a bit here. But what we will be trying to do is make a high-quality retail project that attracts national tenants that we all like. We want restaurants, we want different service jobs, and lots of retail, soft goods. We've been working on this for, Diversified has since January, I'll call it, and we have tons of interested users that want to be here at this corner to serve the community. And we're looking forward to be able to make that a reality and make those deals with the tenants that want to be here. But part of that process, and you'll see as we go through these slides, part of that process is figuring out how much this is going to cost to build and figuring out how we get that done. So go ahead, next slide, Steve. So I wanted to talk through some of the development challenges that are bringing us here tonight and have started this discussion about the development agreement. So that wash that we were talking about is probably the biggest hurdle for this particular parcel. Construction costs just globally from a macro level have gone up considerably over the last 3 years. So new retail projects have been much more difficult to pencil anywhere you do them because they're so expensive nowadays. Just like everyone's groceries have gone up, same thing with construction costs. They've gone up significantly, and we've had to be able to get over that hurdle on all our new retail projects we have going. And just so you know, Diversified Partners probably has somewhere in the neighborhood of 36 different projects actively going in the greater Phoenix MSA right now, all in various stages of development or construction or entitlement. So we're very used to trying to figure out how to get over these construction costs. And financing. Everyone knows how the Fed interest rates have gone over the last 2 or 3 years, going up, up, up. Finally, we've gotten some relief late this year, thankfully, which is very helpful. The financing for a center like this has gone up significantly over that same time frame, which has led us to needing a development agreement to be able to make this a reality. Go ahead, next slide, Steve. All right, so what you're seeing in red here is all area on this parcel that is affected by this wash that runs east to west here. And you in Steve's slide about 4 slides ago, it was kind of outlined in a dark black line, and I'm sure he'll get back to that looking at it. But if we were to build this and not touch the wash, we couldn't build anything in red here. We could build a few buildings up on the frontage, right on Carefree Highway, and maybe one building along Cave Creek, but you can't use this area because this wash running through here. Go ahead and click next. So this is our site plan with that wash overlaid on it, and you can see how it just decimates the amount of buildable square footage that we can do on this project. Go ahead and click that next slide. So as part of the planning and the civil engineering that's being done for this project, we are going to reroute that wash to the blue area. So all that red goes away, and the blue area channelizes this wash and has all the water run inside the channel to make the rest of this area developable. And this is something that is not cheap to do, as you might imagine. There's a lot of work that goes into this wash portion alone. It's probably north of $4.5 million just to get this wash channelized. Go ahead, Steve, click the next one for me. So when we're done with that wash channeling, it turns like this, and we can use the rest of the center to build this shopping center. Along with the wash, we're doing an amenity along the wash. It's a path, so someone could walk their dog from one side to the other. We're going to have some benches, some places where a person can hang out for a little bit as they walk down this path. We think it'll be a nice amenity for our tenants, and some folks that want to be walking out there can avoid, being on the hard corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, which is a busy intersection, as you all know. So it's a good way to reroute pedestrian traffic that may come along here. Go ahead, Steve. So in addition to the wash costs, the actual construction costs, which are about $4.5 million, There was a ton of work that went into making this, to engineering this wash channel. And Sherry probably knows more about this than anyone and may have a couple comments on it. But we did water modeling. We had a civil engineer figure out what the flow was. If you go upstream on this same wash channel, there's been a bunch of development upstream, and we were able to calculate how much flow is actually coming to this parcel today versus historically, because some of that water has been taken care of upstream here. So all that water modeling and engineering costs has gone into where we're at today, where we have this channel that we can build. Go ahead, Steve.
Scott, just a quick question.
Sure.
As far as prior to prices going up after COVID and with the interest rates going up, what's the impact as far as, I know we reduced the cost of the wash, but then what's been the impact back to the wash on that?
And are you talking about the cubic feet per second that's gone down, or are you talking about just generally the wash as it relates to the project?
Just generally the wash costs from what were originally planned to where we are today.
They've gone up significantly, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
This wash cost 5 years ago. It would probably be about half of what it is now. It's just gone up significantly, the construction cost to get this thing completed. And as a bunch of you may know or may not know, 2 previous developers went to buy this property from Sherry's group, the Empire Group, and they were 2 world-class developers. They're not people that are new to the game, and that's Eisenberg and Thompson Thrift. Both of them were in escrow to purchase this property, but couldn't make it work in part because of these wash challenges. They had rising interest rates, rising construction costs, but this wash really puts it over the edge and makes it not a feasible project if you have to do this wash. Go ahead, Steve, click the next one for me. This is just a graphic showing how construction costs have behaved since 2001. You can see that from 2020 going to 2024, they've just gone up, and it's everybody's cost. It's homes built, it's non-residential buildings, it's infrastructure like the roads and things that you guys have to deal with all the time. Construction costs have gone up considerably, and we're all dealing with that reality. Okay, so this slide I just touched on the interest rates, but generally across the board, building new retail, as I mentioned earlier, it's hard to do right now because of the environment with construction costs, and a tenant can only pay so much. So, I get a tenant to pay the maximum amount of dollars that I can for them to rent a space from us, but still they've got to be able to sell you your doodad for a reasonable price. So, as we go to stores and we see these cost increases, that's partly because the rent I'm charging is higher, it's partly because the construction costs are higher, their supplies are higher, and all of that relates to making a construction project difficult to pencil in today's reality in 2024. Go ahead, Steve. I talked about this just a moment ago, and that were those 2 previous developers that tried to make this work. And there were some issues with getting things approved through the town. I think one of the developers wanted a lot of residential here. And really the focus on this parcel for us is maximizing those sales tax dollars, and that's why we're going to be talking about this development agreement. The more money that folks spend there, the better it is for the town, which is why we have this development agreement that we're looking to get approved that will help us recoup some of these costs through those sales tax funds that will be coming in from people using this property. Go ahead. So I wanted to touch on some of these highlights, and I know, Steve, you're going to cover the development agreement in a detailed manner, but in essence, if we perform and build this shopping center pursuant to this development agreement, so we build a minimum amount of retail and we do it in a timely manner before the deal expires, then we're able to get these reimbursements through sales tax. So this is going to be sales tax from folks from Cave Creek, folks from Scottsdale. I know my mother-in-law lives on Scottsdale Road in Loudon. just a couple miles down the road, and she keeps asking me every day who I'm putting here, when it's opening. So those kind of folks are going to be coming up to this property and coming over to this property and dumping their sales tax and their dollars that they worked for into this community, which is the goal of this development agreement. And what we're going to do in this development agreement is for a 5-year period, sales tax that's collected, the developer, we will get 49% of that sales tax that's collected, and the town will get 51% of the sales tax that's collected. So it's a win-win for everyone, because if we didn't have this development agreement and the ability to get some of these reimbursements, the project just doesn't pencil. We have to make a profit as a developer, and this particular site is a premier site. As you all know, it's at the corner of Main and Main on Cave Creek and Carefree Highway. And for us as a developer, it would really be a feather in our cap to get this thing done. And when we looked at it and trying to figure out how we make this work, and we did our analysis, we do our due diligence, and we sit here and scratch our heads and say, we can't make this work. And we had already been having discussions with the town about what we can build and what they want to see and staff. And that's when we came up to the town and said, we need help. We cannot do this on our own. It doesn't pencil. We could build 1 or 2 pads along the frontage, not do anything with the wash, and call it a day and have a small project. Or we can figure out a way to team up and make this thing a big, beautiful project like everyone wants it to look like. And so that brings us to today, to the development agreement. And I guess that would be my quick synopsis of how we got from there to here. And we're looking forward to hopefully getting this development agreement in place and building a really high-quality shopping center for everyone to use.
Scott, quick question. What was I going to ask? I'm sorry, I'm a little loopy on drugs right now. So, go ahead. I'll come back with it.
Go ahead to the next slide.
You're not done?
Let's see what's next. Oh, that was it. Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, council members. Open to questions, open to feedback, ready to answer whatever you guys need. And thank you very much to the whole town, staff, council, for working with us to get us to the point where we're at today, where we have a chance to get this development agreement put in place.
I remembered. Can you explain the unique difference between your relationship with Empire and the previous developers?
Yes. So the owner of the Empire Group is a nice man named Richard Felker. And Richard went through these 2 long escrows with the previous developers. And land escrows for this kind of project take years. So we're not talking, it's a 10-day and then they buy it. We're talking years, 4 years of waiting for someone to buy this property from him to do a shopping center. And when the second developer dropped out, he called Walt Brown Jr. Walt Brown Jr. is the CEO of Diversified Partners and my boss. Called Walt and said, Walt, what the heck am I doing wrong? Well, I've tried twice. Have you heard of Thompson Thrift? Yes, they're great. Have you heard of Eisenberg? Yes, they're great. How can I get this thing into production? So what we told him is, you need to stay with the property and not sell it. You need to be part of this development so that when a tenant comes to us and says, I want to sign a deal here, this is the 3rd time that tenant has seen this project. So a couple of our tenants that we have close to the finish line, they've said, is this really going to happen? Because I saw it from Eisenberg, I saw it from Thompson Thrift, and now I'm seeing it for a 3rd time. So our relationship with the Empire Group is a joint venture where we said, you're staying in it with us. It's going to be a partnership. That way, these tenants know that they're making deals with the owner of the land and that it's going to be a true partnership and they can make their deals. Does that sound right, Sherry? All right, good.
Great. Andy?
Just following up on that. So say it's built, who runs it, who manages it?
Sure.
For how long are you here?
So our company has a property management division. We have construction division. So we will be the property managers for the long term, and we'll also be the owners for the foreseeable future. So we'll be here, when this development agreement ends 8 years from now, we're going to be like, dang it, that was great. I wish we could do it again. So we will be here for the long term. That's our current plan.
And I know a lot of folks have on their minds, like, who do you have letters of intent with? And I know there's some things you can say, you can't say. Walt was here last month. He talked about it a little bit. So short of me calling your mother-in-law, what can you?
She
what can
would
you
have
tell me?
all sorts of juicy gossip for you. A lot of our tenants have non-disclosures as part of their letters of intent, that we can't disclose who they are. What we're going to be doing, our plan, what we look for is the best in class. So we pick a category, whatever that category is, and we attack the best in class tenant in that category. So if we say, like a sit-down restaurant, for example. We really want to get a nice restaurant here that everyone can go to, and you don't have to go down to the Scottsdale 101, and you don't have to go down to Kierland. You know, we're looking for some of those types of tenants here, and we think we're going to be able to get some of those tenants. Now, I will say that when I try to get a 5-star Michelin restaurant, I don't think that's going to happen. So I don't want anyone's hopes up that we're going to have the premier high level. I tried. I sent our leasing agent to Chicago to meet with all the Michelin restaurants to see if they'd come down here. And what we do is we go and find the best user in that certain category. So we're talking to several sit-down restaurants that are very interested, and we've told them if we get this development agreement in place, we can push your deal along further and try to make this a reality. Because we also don't want to get the tenants too excited, because if the development agreement doesn't happen, we can't do the project. So we can't put the cart before the horse. And our plan is going to be to announce these tenants as we sign leases with them, with their permission. So as we're signing up tenants, we'll get them announced. We'll have some press releases. We're looking for all different categories of users, and we have some really, really good tenants that we love, that I love, that my mother-in-law loves, that everybody's going to love. So I can't get exactly specific, but there's a bunch of great stuff coming.
I just think it's important that we, the council and the public, really have expectations that are real. And so that goes not in terms of who the tenants will be, but what the project will look like, and how it'll work, and who will shop there, and things like that.
Yes.
That's really important. So if we have, if expectations are higher than what reality will be, then we'll have disappointed people. We just want to make sure folks understand what's happening.
Yes, and I totally understand that, which is why I don't want to say, you know, a certain tenant, and then maybe if it doesn't work out with them, I don't want people's, you know, to get excited about. Everyone has the same tenants that they love, and we'd love to have there. But until I have them inked, I don't want to say anything that has false pretenses. We're going to get the best, highest quality tenant that we possibly can. And there's some really great ones that are on the doorstep, but I just don't want to say anything that when I get the phone calls a year from now and it said, you said it was this person, and I said, oh, I thought it was going to be them, but perhaps it's not. I just can't do it. I don't want to pinch myself that way. And it's easier for Walt, you know, he's the CEO. He's not going to get yelled at as much if he says something, but I just want to make sure I don't relay any information that's not correct.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Okay, other council members?
Well, I just wanted to ask, because when Walt was here last month, he did mention some pretty cool stores, restaurants. Were those just pie in the sky?
Sure, which ones?
Trader Joe's.
So we have some correspondence that's gone back and forth with them. They have all the information on the site. They asked for some more information this last week. So we're working on it with them. We'd love to have them. They're our probably highest priority tenant to come here. They do their stores in tranches. So they had looked at all their 2025 stores up until a couple weeks ago, and now they're moving to 2026 stores, which this would be. And if I will do anything I can in my power to get them here, and that could be a reality, but just it's not a signed deal yet.
Okay, so it just seemed in last month's meeting that it was pretty definite. And there were a couple of restaurants, I think one was cheeseburgers and cold beer, he mentioned.
Yep, we've received a LOI from them. I don't know if they're going to go here. They are a great restaurant, and the operator there is a fantastic guy. He's great to work with. They have a ton of parking. that they need to have. We're very particular about making sure our tenants have the adequate amount of parking, even if it's over code. We make sure we have enough parking for our tenants. And Cold Beer and Cheeseburger, they have a ton of parking requirements. We put them down on Scottsdale 101 on the east side there on Chauncey Lane, and they do very well there. And they have a lot of parking that goes in there, and it's tough for them with parking. So they could be a potential here. I have someone that's even better. I shouldn't say that. Cold Beer and Cheeseburger is great. I'm going to see this video. I'm going to get yelled at. They're great, but I might have some folks that I think would be more well received up here. The demographics up here, we're constrained geographically. We don't have huge, dense population up here, which a lot of the tenants look at and say, the density's not there. But the household income and the disposable income is fantastic. So we can get some higher end users here that know that they'll get the regulars that'll come once a week to have dinner or buy the doodads here. So we think we'll be able to land some pretty spectacular folks that everyone's going to be really happy with.
Thank you.
So at the end of the day, in order to make this land developable for a commercial retail site, we need to move the wash.
Yes.
That's very expensive. Your job is to balance rents with the cost of construction to make it affordable for these really great tenants to come.
Yes.
Walt did mention that I think there's probably 5,000 projects that he's done. I don't know if they've all been with Diversified, but so he obviously and your team is very well seasoned in doing this. And I do believe he mentioned that the demographics, though, we're not like downtown Phoenix or anything, but they are much broader demographic for the geographic area going out both ways, Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, and then that big circle. So that's not comparable, say, to our town center or even the corner of Scottsdale Road and Carefree Highway.
Yes.
So this does attract a much broader audience to come to this corner.
Huge regional draw. We built the center on I-17 and Carefree Highway, Tremonto, and we still manage that property. And there will be people that'll come from all the way over there to come here to use some of our tenants that we're going to be putting here. This draw is going to be huge and regional, and we're looking at keeping people coming from as far as away possible. TSMC has brought a whole new dynamic to the I-17 and Carefree Highway area. And folks are going to be moving here that have really good jobs, and some of them are going to see Carefree as the Beverly Hills of Phoenix, and they're going to want to live here, and they're going to want services that speak to that upper end demographic. So we expect there to be a long-term regional draw at this center. And we've done 5,000 is probably about correct. We've done so many projects. Walt's been doing this for a long time. And a bunch of our team, we have a bunch of young people that have been in the business a long time. I've been in business since 2004, as an example. Even though I'm a young guy, I feel young. But we've been doing this a long time, and we know exactly what we're doing and have these tenant relationships to make this a reality. And I'm looking forward to, if we get this done, having those announcements as we get tenants on board, so folks can hear who's coming, who's going to be coming. And a lot of these users, as I said before, they've tried to go here twice previously with Thompson Thrift and with Eisenberg. So when we actually start construction, which I'm hoping for early next year, when we start construction, we're going to get some of those folks that were just sitting on the sidelines that said, is this really going to happen? Are you really going to be able to do this? And with this development agreement in hand, yes, we are doing this. And yes, we will be able to deliver. So that's going to be fun when that happens as well. So looking forward to lots of positive stuff on this project as we move forward.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I was looking at the plot plan, and I noticed there's an oil change proposed, oil changers, if you will. It's west of the entrance to Carefree Ironwood Estates. It seems to be sufficiently buffered by the wash.
Mhm.
Given the level of activity, it's on the Carefree Highway side of the project, right? So you anticipate a lot of noise or things that are going to bother the community coming out of that operation?
No, I don't. I have 3 different quick change oil change companies that are interested in this site, that have made offers on this site. And all of them have varying degrees of mitigation techniques to make sure that we're buffered properly. But on this case, you know, that wash, the start of the wash is right there, and the homes are a little further northeast, the first home on that corner there. So there's significant buffer from a distance perspective. And we're also right on Carefree Highway, and the decibels coming off Carefree Highway at any given time are massive compared to what we're going to see here. There's a huge buffer on Carefree Highway to those residents, and I think our buffer is probably about equal from that where we're showing that oil change. And again, this site plan, it's as good as we can get it right now before we have leases signed. But certain things are going to adjust slightly, different building sizes, different building orientations. So for example, if I have some restaurant that wants to come in next to where we're showing an oil change guy, and they say, hey, I don't want an oil change near me, depending on what we have going here, we really want that high sales tax grossing retailer because of this development agreement. So if I have my choice of someone that has really high sales tax or someone that doesn't, because of this agreement, it's incentivizing me to get that sales tax, which is great for us, it's great for you, and that's what makes this whole thing a really good win-win. But to be determined what we do there. We have had interest from those users, though.
So on the pads, there's a 5,000 square foot pad that's west of the oil change. What types of businesses would you envision wanted coming in there?
Varying different ones. Right now, I'd say my leading user for that space is a sit-down restaurant that's bigger than 5,000 feet. Just to be honest, in my day-to-day, I'm talking to someone that I want to put there. That would be phenomenal. Everyone would love me. I'd get all these adoring calls from the public. I'd become the most popular guy except the mayor here. So right now, I'd say that's what I would put there. We have different little small restaurant users. We have services. We're going to have a nails person. We're going to have a barber. There's going to be services that people can use here. So it just depends. We have a bunch of inline users that we have letters of intent from. But that one right now, at this moment, I'm really hoping will be this sit-down restaurant.
I have a question. Can you, last month, Walt had spoken to the time sensitivity of getting this approved and the sense of urgency in doing that. And can you speak to this again and why it's so important that this is something that has to be done now, and the benefits, even maybe even some of the drawbacks of not?
Correct. Okay, so on the southeast corner, there's a couple things with timing. You always want to get deals done while you have deals ready to go. But the biggest thing from a timing standpoint is the project on the southeast corner of Cave Creek and Carefree Highway. There's a nice family there, the Bullington family, that owned this thing for a long time. And unfortunately, Mr. Bullington passed away about probably 9 months ago now. Nice family, good folks. After he passed, the families decided it's time to do something with that project. So since that point, they have teamed up with another great developer, Evergreen Development, and they are going through their process to get that site up and going. They're trying to beat us out of the ground, and if they can take tenants over that are high quality tenants, they will try to do so. They're almost the same from a geographic perspective, because they're on the same corner. One's a northeast corner, one's a southeast corner. Theirs is nice and flat and easy to build on. They don't have a lot of the issues that we have from a wash, from a topography standpoint. We have 27 feet of drop from one side to the other side that we have to deal with on this site. So there's a lot of development challenges that we're facing. And the only way we're going to be able to nail down these tenants is by moving like lightning. If we can't get these tenants signed up now, even before the end of the year, we're going to lose them to the site across the street. So if we can't get this done and have expedited reviews and the town's help to be as expeditious as possible, we're not going to be able to make this project a reality. So I beat on Walt every day saying, we got to get this done, we got to get this done, we got to get this done. And so that's all he hears from us is as fast as possible. And again, that's the only way this works. If we're still figuring this out 6 months from now on the development agreement, they're going to be caught up and they're going to be going under construction, and some of the tenants are going to go to the south corner. And we don't want to lose those to, is that Cave Creek or Scottsdale? I think that's Cave Creek.
I think part of the dilemma is that there's a finite pool of good tenants, and a lot of them are already out there. We look across the street to Sprouts, for example, and we see the development going down Carefree Highway. And so if there's additional commercial development all around us, the pool becomes less and less.
Yes, very much so. And especially with the population density, there's only so many times you can go out to eat, in one night, for an example. So we need to go as fast as possible, be under construction as soon as possible. And I think the town staff has done a really great job at weighing speed versus making sure we're doing everything we're supposed to. Because the town, they gave us early on what this thing needs to look like, the quality of the center. Stacy and Steve with the town have both been excellent in moving quick and showing us, hey, we need to do this, we need to do this. So we are incentivized to move as fast as humanly possible, but we always do the right thing at Diversified Partners. We always do the right thing. So, if something happens and something was missed and Steve says, well, you got to do this, it's the right thing, no problem. We always do it. So we're going to do the right thing. We're going to build a super high quality center, but we need to move as fast as possible.
Very good. Any other comments or questions from the council? So hearing none, Steve, do you have anything to add before I turn it into public comment?
I still have a little bit more to go.
Okay, go right ahead.
We're good.
Okay.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Mayor, Council, I'm just going to kind of rehash back through, I know we've been through a process already. A lot of people in this room have heard these presentations, but some people haven't, so I am going to go through them again real quick. And the way that we are able to do this type of agreement is through state statute 9-511, which allows the community to enter into a sales tax agreement for sales tax development, generating development. That's net new to the community. And the two criteria that are listed are that in the absence of the tax incentive, the retail business facility wouldn't come to the town, and that the proposed incentive is anticipated to raise more revenue than the amount of the anticipated or the incentive within the duration of the agreement. As part of that, there's a third-party requirement to evaluate the second dot point. We ended up, when we went through our third-party evaluation, to actually have them look at both dot points as part of this process, because there were some comments from the community about making sure that we just had a second set of eyes looking at all the numbers that we've been able to look at. And then this notice needs to be made 14 days prior to approving the agreement or for you to take a vote on it. And this notice was approved on October 1st, 2024, so we're well within that particular time frame. And one of the questions we get is just looking at the agreement evaluation. So this is, to get to that notice of intent, we as staff had to bring to you, council, an evaluation process to make sure that we complied with the law. And so just to kind of look at the site history again, it really came down to, as Scott, I guess he really put it out there, that they've been through a ton of due diligence on this particular site. And it included, for them to actually hire engineers, get studies done, hire contractors. They provided revenue analysis for the project. They provided revenue analysis for their tenants that they're potentially looking at. We had actual costs based on contractor estimates. So they provided us with a lot of that information to look at and evaluate, to kind of show us the details and the numbers, so to make sure that we're not doing this agreement and they don't need it. And it's been very clear that based on what they've provided, that this is a very reasonable request. Again, we looked at part of that, wash options leave in place. They evaluated relocating the wash. As part of the leave in place evaluation was like, you know, can you shore up the channel? Can you look at a lot of different things? At the end of the day, it just never really penciled out for the developer, and it never really penciled out for us as well. And then, you know, he put the number at 4.5. Originally, we were looking at 4.2, so obviously that that cost has gone up since we originally did the evaluation. So the numbers you're seeing here are generally going to be looked at when we came to the council and went through the evaluation process. And when you do this, you look at a net, oh shoot, I lost my net present value. We go through a net present value analysis. And what that does is it looks at the total amount of revenue that we are going to look at based on the options we have in front of us today. And so what we evaluated was the revenue assistance with the assistance, looking at, you know, rebating and starting this project in 2 years, and opening that up. Revenue without assistance, making an assumption that, you know, maybe in 6 years after that or 8 years, they can sell it and find another developer. Economy changes, who knows? It could be never, right? It could be forever. A lot of things can happen and change at that particular time. So there's risk with that. And then the revenue not to relocate the wash. And then you can see that was just kind of looking at, like, if they, to Scott's point, if they didn't relocate it, what could they potentially do? There's no guarantee they'd do anything. So I just took a stab at that. But the way I also wanted to evaluate this was kind of like looking at a little bit like what it would be like if Thompson Thrift had taken over the site and built out the amount of retail that they would have built, which would have been similar to what was available without the wash being relocated. And so then we go through and we look at the sales tax. And again, it's just, you know, taking the numbers that they provided, taking the numbers that we provided. This was actually adjusted after the third party looked at it as well. So I just wanted to kind of look at and give people the idea of what these numbers kind of looked like, you know, as far as what we're getting and what we're giving back. And you can see that over a 5-year period, just on the sales tax alone, we're looking at a 56% return back to the town, and over 10 years, 77% return. And the one key thing to look at here is the total amount of revenue that we'll get once the project is built. And we've always assumed that we would have $1.2 million kind of is the target for this particular site, based on a lot of you know, just guesswork and, you know, looking at per square foot revenues based on different types of tenants and different types of development. And so this is what we went through to provide this analysis when we looked at the town. You can see in year 6, it assumes there's more construction revenue that we get back over time. So there's going to be additional construction sales tax. And one of the things, I'm just going to take this time to talk about it right now, because I think it's good to put it on the table, is, I apologize, for parcel C, the northern parcel, it shows office. One of the things that the developer has asked, but it's not in part of this development agreement, and you're not authorizing any change to land use or zoning or anything like that. They have asked and then said, hey, would it be okay for us to engage the neighbors to find retail type uses that maybe are as benign as office that would work, that benefit the town, it'd benefit us. Office, medical office especially, is extremely difficult to build right now and get tenanted, and it would be a huge benefit for everybody. So so that's one of the things that we'll probably look at, but you're not going to be voting on any of that tonight. That will go through a process where they have to engage the community. They would have to get approvals. It's a legislative process and all that. So one thing to also think about is that because we're doing this incentive agreement, the agreement itself, and as we go through it, actually incentivizes them to build more retail. So when they originally were talking to us, there was a lot of service businesses that were kind of in the original site plan, and they really weren't to a benefit of the town. So as we started talking about how we can reimburse revenue back to them through sales tax, they got a little bit more interested in bringing in sales tax revenue generating type businesses. So, which is to our advantage over having, you know, larger service businesses there. And so that's why you kind of see some of these numbers jump a little bit. It was a huge part, and we saw it reflected in the site plan progress that they presented. Do you have a question?
Yep, I would just say, it's important to note that, because we cannot dictate the kind of tenants they have. So we can't say, oh, no, you cannot have the service business. It's their business, they can do what they want. But what we have done is created a scenario, a plan, an agreement where they're incentivized to bring in retail, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
So I guess.
Thank you, appreciate it. To the activity to date, the developer has done everything they possibly can to go through the due diligence process. They came in with an ask, and that ask was pretty much in line with what we have come up with as far as the agreement goes. So that ask was somewhere in the $3.7 to $3.9 million range. And so we designed this contract based on all the data and information that's provided and evaluated through us and then the third-party evaluator. So between us, the developer and third party, we're kind of all on the same page. We're definitely going to be in that sweet spot for where the original request was made. And the idea was to make sure that we could get this done as quickly as possible, because for us, it's about getting ultimately to the larger cash flow. So, because we know that, and you know that in the future, near future, we're going to have contracts coming up, and it really comes down to threshold finances that come in. And so, $500,000 isn't going to cut it, but if we get closer to 1.3, 1.4 million, then that cuts it. So, looking at the deal, they have to build a minimum out of the gate. It's called a condition precedent, and they have to find some way to start the development, and to be able to start when the process for getting incentives begins. And so that point is when they build 60,000 square feet, have a 38,000 minimum square feet of retail, or they have one of their primary tenants in, they can then begin make a request up to for retail sales tax reimbursements. And they can make that request up to 9 months or up to June 30th, whichever is longer. So let's say they do it in August, right? Then it's 9 months after that. If they go through it and they don't get it done till December, and then it's only going to be the 6 months. Because on July 1st, if they've met the condition precedent and they haven't asked us to start it, it starts on July 1st, 2027. So, and the idea behind this is to allow them to build as much retail up front as possible, because that's what we want them to do. And the more they build, the more they win. The more they win, the more we win, and the more retail they get in there, it's everybody wins. And so, and so that's kind of how these incentives particularly work. Again, it's a 49-51 split for the construction sales tax. And to note that they get the construction sales tax only for the things that they put in up to the point when they start actually collecting on the period. So they're going to have to weigh and gauge, based on how much development they create, how much construction sales tax they're going to get, and how much they might have to leave on the table that we collect later on. And part of it was done that way because just to making sure that we can have a little buffer room and extra room when it comes to making sure that we get more revenues than we give away. The other thing that's not included in reimbursement, in the rebates, is any kind of lease tax or utility taxes or any of those things. So we do get those revenues, excuse me, as well, on top of everything, and we get that at 100%. And then additionally, we'll be having fee waivers. Again, it's going to be looking at an expedited review, and we'll do a fee waiver. And you can see the estimated amounts I put in here. So if you look at that total, it gets to about $3.95 million. That's right in the ballpark of where we're at. If you look at some of the information I provided, some of it might be a little bit different. You just kind of try to hit the target. This is all estimated, so we're just going to try to look at the estimated numbers. And and if they overproduce and they really can hit their numbers and produce on quality tenants, then they can increase that number significantly for them and for ourselves. And then the last thing is that the amounts are capped at the cost of public infrastructure, which we've deemed as the wash, improvements in the trail, and screen wall that goes along with that for the neighborhood. So it's something that's going to be dedicated as a public amenity to the town, and then there will be so the water lines, and I apologize, the water lines are not included in this particular analysis, and then the street improvements were included because water goes to the Carefree Water Company, so I apologize. And then, any questions to this point? So again, as we stated, there's an independent I'm going to go back real quick because this is important. When we were looking to try to bring this to council today, when you put these agreements together, there's all kinds of things that have to happen that go along with it. And if you look at exhibits, there's agreements for maintenance and operations and maintenance for certain things. And we do have an operations and maintenance agreement that's going to be part of this agreement for the wash. So the developer will maintain and repair the wash as necessary moving forward. And then And then on top of it, there's insurance requirements that are part of these agreements, and we just need to make sure that, you know, we're properly protected as a town, and the developer's properly protected. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get, you know, we have our risk management evaluation done, and we provided information. We just haven't had the opportunity to get the full conversation gone. So you're gonna see an amendment to the motion, and Dennis, I hope you can help me out with that amendment as we discussed. And so what that amendment will do is it will allow us to execute the agreement and then allow the town administrator to just finalize that insurance requirement. And really, there's two parts of the insurance. There's the initial development, and then there's the ongoing maintenance, or the ownership, or I don't say ownership, the long-term stewardship of the wash. And then again, going back to the independent third party, as you can see, we went through this process. The way they evaluate is they just look at the total the benefit to the town. That's going to be based on the infrastructure and the sales tax revenues and everything. And they just weigh that against what you're giving away. And they included everything in that analysis. And when they did the 5-year analysis for the incentive period, it came out to just $11.5 million. And again, I've already talked about the last dot point. So we did ask them to look at, you know, just looking at the numbers, and as Scott talked about, you know, what it takes to make a decision like this. And we did have them look over that information and all the revenue projections, and, you know, they didn't see anything that looked out of whack or out of line as far as, you know, types of lease rates they're charging, the types of revenue we would expect from different tenants on the site. So to conclude the evaluation, you know, we really feel like we walked through the process as accordance with the law. We feel like we've walked through the due diligence period. We believe that the developer has walked through the proper due diligence period. As you know, these types of agreements get all kinds of eyes on them in the public whether it's the press or whether it's you know, the Goldwater Institute. And so what we want to do is just make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's to make sure that we comply. And so we feel very strongly that the way we've worded the agreement, that we actually fall under and look under 2 statutes. And we looked at both of those. And so one key element we did was, if you look in the notice of intent, we actually determined that for the town of Carefree, we determined that sales tax is of a public benefit, a direct public benefit. And the rationale being that this site is one of only one site, maybe 2, that could actually legitimately add 15 to 20% to our overall bottom line. Phoenix can't say that. Peoria, Glendale, those are large towns, large cities. And so we are uniquely situated that way. And I would say the legislation is really geared towards more rural communities, with the only slight difference being because we're in Maricopa County, you're going to have a supermajority vote, whereas somebody in a rural area for a smaller community only would need simple majority to approve this type of agreement. And so I'll, Dennis, kind of put the motion back over to you.
With regard to the insurance?
Yes, just to kind of talk about the difference.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we're just gonna ask, when the motion is made, that if the motion is to approve the development agreement, it will be with the modification that Exhibit E can be modified, but must be approved by the town administrator. And Exhibit E has all the insurance requirements.
Okay, well, thank you. Once we get to there, we'll keep that in mind. Any other questions or comments from council before we open it up?
Yes. Steve, I've shared these, the numbers, the deal with a very experienced retail broker. And he says the deal is very good for Carefree. And he also has high regard for the developer. He's worked with them in the past. I think it's worth reading that in this summary from ESI, it says over 5 years, the benefit to the town from the development of Carefree Quarter is $15.2 million. In contrast to the calculated value of the town's incentive to the developer over the 5 years is $3.6 million. The net benefit to the town is $11.5 million. This is a good deal.
Yeah. Mayor, Councilman Miller, I agree with you. I think this is, you know, I've done a lot of these types of deals, and you know, a lot of communities I think lead with the opportunity to go out there and say, hey, we'll try to work with you and do something. In this case, it was the developer came to us and said, hey, the only thing we're really gonna think we might need is expedited plan review and maybe some help with our permits. And they walked through all the other steps to get to where they need to get to. So they put significant cost, and I think really came up with real numbers to get to something that's gonna be a quality development.
And I think the alternative is vacant land which produces zero. So, all
And
right,
so-
any other comments from council?
And Mayor, just real quick, so the next agenda item, we'll be looking at approval for the wash maintenance agreement as well. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Understood. So hearing no comments from the council, we'll open up the public comment. So I have a number of slips. So when you come up, you're welcome to speak your mind, ask questions, we'll answer them. We'll try to limit each person to about 3 minutes. And speaking to the microphone so everyone can hear you. So first up is Mr. John Bolke of Ironwood Estates.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm John Bolke. I live at 34825 North Summit Drive in Carefree, Ironwood Estates. I'm the president of the HOA there, and my home personally borders that property. And overall, I want to say that we're happy with the plan. We were involved with the council in 2018, 6 years ago, when it went through zoning and the ordinance that was put in place. And we've seen some bad plans since then. High-density housing, housing that was for lease only, and we think this is the best possible option. If I were to ask all the residents in the community, I mean, I've talked to them about this, you know, ideally they want it just desert. That would be everyone's first choice. But we also know that that's not realistic. And so the developer and the owner has reached out to us to get our feedback, which was very good. Very interested to make sure that we were happy with the plan and wanted any feedback we had. So it's a great team, a great plan, and our community that is most affected by this development is in favor of it. Thank you.
So before you sit down, is your board, are they, the majority of your board in favor of it?
Yes.
Okay, great,
Yeah.
thank you. Next up, Mr. Art Vivas.
Beavers, PO 5114. Good evening, Mayor and Council and fellow residents. Firstly, I'm really pleased to see the ideas for the northeast corner. I've been after this for years. Its development is part of various planning scenarios and misfires I've seen in my 11 years here. So what's the rush now? I understand the sales tax issue. We've already discussed it. Meanwhile, the influence of lame duck councilors seems to also be pushing the agenda when the residents may not be watching, given pre- and post-election distractions. At least one council meeting to include the 3 new councilors elected are suggested. Who will be dealing with it? They'll be dealing with the development's after effects, so that's a more appropriate action to have them involved. Maybe the new councilors will agree with the long-awaited proposal, but the hurried nature of this process is suspiciously uncomfortable. After all, the wash infrastructure alone will take lengthy time, so fears of losing tenants is an unrealistic excuse to move immediately. Scott just spoke to the lack of surety about what will be here and who will come. So what's the rush? The 20 letters of intent obtained by Diversified offer limited assurances. These intents are not promissory notes, so they can be backed out any time without penalties. The last time decisions happened too quickly were during COVID. We ended up with the Bright Skies Hampton, the squeezed-in Village View, and the surprise creation of the Northwest Corner Spa. I question, along with the Northeast Corner tenantless office spaces, do we know what we're trying to do to beat Phoenix's plan with evergreen development next to Walmart? Have developers provided a second backup list of possible retailers if the intents fail? Are the retailers that Walmart wants so similar to the Quarters that we should be concerned who jumps first to get the first hamburger pizza joint? Although Mayor Crane doesn't foresee an issue with this tax incentive deal, what will prevent the Northwest Corner owner from seeking the same incentive for the recently passed new GP's proposed hotel resort. To quote Mayor Crane, a decision on one property does not make for a precedent on another. It should make residents more cautious and concerned about monitoring future town development plans under such tax incentive deals. After all, if we had moved over the last 5 years with either Eisenberg or Thompson Thrift, the cost of the wash would have been so reduced as we heard tonight. Think of how the turnout was at the last few town meetings where this deal was revealed. Regardless of its consequential cost wager to satisfy a developer's urgency. I know we've got the EDD's revenue projections, we just saw them, but it's fiscally risky to bet so much town treasure on this alone. Given the significance of the project, why haven't consultants been hired more than the third party that we're obligated to have? Additionally, what happens if the projected sales tax profit levels aren't met due to less than appealing tenants? Okay. We should prioritize finding the high retail restaurants. Unfortunately, Scott suggests we won't get any of them to offer special attractions. By the way, we already have a Jiffy Lube 1/4 mile away. So I don't envision visitors coming from a 10-mile radius to get a new oil change service, even if it's premium oil. Thank you.
Yeah, just one comment. So just because we do something here doesn't mean we do it somewhere else. Just like if we do upzoning, change zoning somewhere, it doesn't mean we change zoning somewhere else because we approve a special use permit in one place, doesn't mean we approve it somewhere else. And I would also argue that, town treasurer, the beauty of this agreement is if we don't do anything, we have zero town treasurer income. If we do something, what the developer brings, what these retail sales tax revenues bring, that's what's used to incentivize the developer, not anything from the general fund. That's what makes the proposal so appealing. The town the risk to our general fund, what's in there now, our reserves, is nothing. And I would also say, we're going back to if we do an incentive program here, how does it impact the northwest corner? The fact is, if this becomes successful, there's less pressure on us to do other things. All of a sudden, we can be have much more discretion about what we agree to. There's less pressure on us financially. If we find ourselves just under financial pressure, we'll have more options or more the ability to say, no, we're not interested in you, next. So I think those are things that we should keep in mind. Okay, thank you. Ariane Buser.
Hi, Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. I forgot my notepad, so I have to go off my phone. Lots of thoughts about this. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate it. I actually think that this is going to make us turn into like a mini Scottsdale or a mini Phoenix. Honestly, you were talking about, I know your retail businesses and whatever aren't defined, but you mentioned a lot about box stores. That's not why any of us moved here, frankly. I see just a lot of the same that already exists right down in Cave Creek and Phoenix and Scottsdale. And I think, have you reached out to any local, like small businesses that might be interested in going into this new location rather than focusing on box stores? And by the way, we already have a Bash's here in town, so another grocery store. That means we would have 5 grocery stores within like a few mile radius. That's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Bash's, I don't know how well they're doing, but if you put another grocery store, they most likely will go out of business. Is that really what you want to do? Another question I have too is, did you do an environmental impact study on the wash? Living up here, as I'm sure you may know, a lot of animals use washes as a corridor to move from place to place. So if you basically get rid of that wash, while it might be very convenient for you and your businesses, future development, that is causing detrimental harm to the local ecosystem, which to me is greatly concerning. So I just was very curious about that. I think it should be taken into consideration, if anything. And yeah, mentioning something about an oil change, like to me that is kind of tacky, and there are some very close by, so why do we need another one? I think we're trying to, if you want to bring in businesses, let's keep it classy, please, And because we are a high-scale location, and we want to have businesses that kind of reflect that, and not just something that's going to be another box store that turns into just, like I said, a mini Scottsdale or Phoenix. That's not why any of us moved here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Ms. Maureen Benedetto.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Maureen Benedetto. I live in the Boulders. One of the things I just wanted to say was that Carefree is a world-class name. And we can't dictate what tenants go into a Carefree quarter, but I wanted to ask the gentleman, this is from your website. It says Carefree Quarter / Cave Creek. Carefree Quarter. You know the properties in Carefree, right? I'm not quite sure what this is, that you're saying it's Cave Creek. So maybe we shouldn't use our wonderful name of Carefree to make it Carefree Quarter when even the developer's calling it Cave Creek.
Sorry, no.
Okay, that's pretty much all I had to say. Scottsdale Quarter, though, has some really great things. You know, they have the Apple Store, they have Restoration Hardware, Lululemon, Dominic's Steakhouse, Eddie V's, Williams and Sonoma. I don't know, those are kind of world class. And what you guys talk about, I made it from your website, the Dollar Tree, Circle K, Food City, Peter Piper Pizza, Big Brand Tires, Texas Roadhouse, Burger King. So you have talked about Trader Joe's and Vig and cold beers and cheeseburgers. Okay, I just want to use our name as world class. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Scott, can you comment to that?
Sure. What she was looking at was a LoopNet service. It's kind of like an MLS for commercial properties, and Cave Creek is the submarket that's named here, so that's why it's on there. This is considered the Cave Creek submarket, is what they determine it as. So we don't get to choose it. We don't get to choose what shows up there. It's not our flyer. It's just the service that is advertising.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Tony Geiger.
Good evening. Tony Geiger, Sentinel Rock Estates. I live near the northeast corner of Cave Creek Road and Carefree Highway. I'm speaking in favor of the proposed Carefree Quarter development. I urge the council to approve the development agreement tonight so that we can secure this much-needed sales tax driver. We are certainly not going to get a property tax to pay for the budget that runs the town. This project is precisely the type of development anticipated for the site when it was rezoned in 2018. It is appropriate for the current sitting council to be the body that decides this issue, and it's in our best interest they be allowed to see it through. The mayor and vice mayor, as well as the 3 outgoing council members, are all longtime residents, some for decades, and have all been involved in this project for the at least past 6 years, some going back over a dozen. In 2018, council member Mike Johnson, while not a member of the town council at the time, was the president of the HOA board of directors for the community next to the development and led the negotiations for ordinance 2018-06, the rezone of the northeast corner. This put in place the protections for residents who will be most impacted by the proposed development, many who have $1 million plus investments in their homes. To delay final approval and start over with 3 new council members who do not have the same background, information, or expertise puts the project needlessly at risk. Based on publicly filed nomination papers, the 3 new incoming council members did not move to Carefree until 2020, 2021, and 2022 respectively. It's worth noting that it would not even be possible to consider the Carefree Quarter project if the town had not completed the water consolidation project, a project the current council had the foresight to pursue. Without it, the town could not provide water to the northeast corner. Additionally, the project provided for the construction of a buried water reservoir that supplies the required fire flows for the site. Councilmember-elect Roth has been pushing to delay the vote on the development agreement until she is sworn into office. It should be noted that Ms. Roth was associated with a group that filed multiple lawsuits against the town and water company in attempt to kill the construction of the buried water reservoir. The actions of the group Ms. Roth was associated with cost the water consolidation project hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Some of those wasted funds could have been spent on things like upgraded and more mature vegetation surrounding the water reservoir. Much larger trees could have been purchased for a fraction of the cost of what lawyers charged. I don't believe Council Member-elect Roth has demonstrated the reasonable and impartial judgment which is necessary for our elected officials to decide critical issues like the development agreement before the council this evening. The current council needs to finalize the agreements for the Carefree Quarter development at tonight's meeting without delay.
Thank you. Mr. Mike Braun.
Mike Braun, I wanted to come up and say I am in favor of this development. I think that the town has gone through many iterations on this piece of land, and it seems that this may be the last opportunity for something to happen in my lifetime, so to speak. And I think that the major thing that I think is very well done is the development agreement, because the town puts at risk no funds. We're not putting out money to move the wash. We're not putting out money for the right turn lanes or the left turn lanes or whatever the improvements may be. That is coming out of future sales tax generated by the property. I do have one question on that agreement. I understood before, at least maybe my misunderstanding, but my understanding was there was a cap on their recoverable dollars of the sales agreement. Is that correct?
Correct. The cap is based on public infrastructure.
No,
Oh, no, there's a cap.
there was an absolute dollar
$7
amount.
million, there's a cap.
Yeah, 7 million max. Yeah.
Fine, okay, that was my question.
Sorry about that.
No, because I don't know what it's gonna cost to do all that, but if it costs more than 7 million, that's on them.
Yeah. And so the initial 7 million came out of the initial estimates for all the things that would cost to build it and maintain it and operate it and all those.
But in the agreement, there is an absolute dollar cap of $7 million
Correct.
of sales tax.
Correct.
All right, very good. I happen to think Diane's name for the place is better than Carefree Quarters, the shops at Black Mountain.
Okay, very good, thank you. Mr. Larry Schneider.
Mr. Mayor, council people, as most of you know, I sent a letter several days ago expressing my opposition to the project. And I just want to make it again clear that that was sent from me personally and not from the HOA that I live in. I'm in Sentinel Rock. I'm the president of the board there. I oppose this project on a number of reasons, but I'm not going to rehash a lot of the ones that have already been mentioned. We're making, I get the tax revenue is sexy. People want that. We could use it, absolutely. But we're making a very large assumption that the developers are going to be able to rent this out as quickly as they think they will be. Retail space is very abundant in this area, whether it's a Cave Creek location, a Scottsdale location, or Carefree. There are many retail spaces that are available. Restaurants turn over frequently. They don't have a high success rate. But my concern is that we're basing a lot of our hopes and dreams on the possibility of income from the sales tax, our percentage of it. I understand that the town is not really reaching into their pockets for any money on this project, and that's great. If there's really only an upside as far as financial goes. However, there are going to be downsides to this project in addition to it possibly becoming another ghost town like Stagecoach Villages or El Pedregal. We've got a lot of traffic already at the intersection of Cave Creek Road and Carefree Highway. That's only going to get worse. We're going to have lights there. There's going to be commercial lighting. I think that because of the size of the lot, it's going to be difficult to get in and out of it, considering 125,000 square feet of space that they want to utilize in buildings and offices and retail. That, to me, is, I agree that the lot should be developed. It's a bad lot. Obviously, they need to spend a lot of money on remedial work in order to make this lot successful. The town being part of it and helping them along with the tax rebate is good. I don't see anything wrong with that. I was against that before, but as the mayor pointed out in a letter to me the other day, the outlay on the part of the town is minimal in terms of cash. But we've still got the negative impact of the traffic at that intersection, the lighting, and I think worst of all, more vacant buildings. They're providing letters of intent, which frankly doesn't mean a whole lot, and they're even being confidential about that. There's no indication as to who or what's going to be going there other than what we've seen on the plans. An oil change facility, nobody's mentioned the fast food drive-up that they show on the plans as well. A lot of times when towns give money to private developers to put together a project in their community, they'll give a tax incentive. Can I get one?
You go right
Yep.
ahead.
If they give a tax incentive to a company, it's primarily because they'll bring jobs to the area. But frankly, I don't see anybody from Carefree working as a grease monkey or bussing tables in these restaurants. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, Mr. Ron Hooper. Oh, there we go.
Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Ron Hooper. I'm the former president of the Canyon Creek Estates and current board member, and really came here. There's nothing more that I can add other than let's move forward with this. That has been such an eyesore for such a long, long time. There's an opportunity for us. There's minimum risk. I think they're going to work out the attendance in this. I'm positive on this, and I'd like to really throw my support as an individual taxpayer and homeowner for this support. We're really tired of that. Until they put a fence up, which even makes it look worse, it's just basically a dust haven. That people are running their motorcycles across there, all that kind of stuff, and it's getting to be just really an ugly sight. So I think this is, strike three could be it for us. So I think it adds income to the coffers, and it cleans up that site. It looks like a beautiful walkway that around us, all those home areas, we can take advantage of it right now. Right now, we would not take our pets through there, and so this will be an area that we can actually use as a community too. And I really want to throw my support behind us acting quickly on this. 3 strikes, we're out. Let's move forward, act like a big city.
Okay, well, thank you. Ms. Jan Neal.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. Jan Neal, Carefree resident. My first question, I think, is a really important one, and that is, where are the renderings? What is this thing going to look like? Why haven't you shown us any pictures? What are you trying to hide? And I know I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we have the Hampton Inn, we have the water tank, but what is this going to look like? Why haven't we seen pictures? I really want an answer to that.
Okay, Mr. Popek?
Yeah, Mayor, and Council and Ms. Neal, you know, the site actually does have approved, as far as the site plan goes, it also comes with approved elevations that are incorporated with that. So they'll have to build in concert with the quality of the elevations that were provided during the site planning and zoning process. And so they also will have to get this approved through, and I don't know if Stacy's still here, we'll have to get this approved through design review? Development Review Board. And they'll, yeah, so they'll have public comment, they'll bring it back forward. But I don't know, Scott, if you want to maybe talk a little bit more about, you know, the type of, what do you guys expect to have elevations? And
Has anybody here seen even rough drafts?
Well, in fact, we approved them in
Pictures.
2018 when we approved it.
So
We
we
approved, go ahead.
Now, you know, I'm gonna let, if I can, bring Ms. Danzak out and she's actually the one processing this from a zoning perspective, so it'd be more appropriate for her to respond.
Mayor, Town Council, Ms. Neal, when the zoning was approved, and many of you were part of that process, there are character images, master planning images that give the intent of the overall design and the quality of what the development will look like. So at this point, the developer has made their application for their site plan, which is the approval that Steve was mentioning, and that is the time where you will see the design of the buildings themselves. It'll be worked out with color and materials, and so it's going through the review process right now. And so we are comparing that to what the intent of the center was approved of originally. And that's different than the other projects that had been mentioned, in the fact that the entitlements set sort of that standard or that expectation by the town of what the center, the quality of the center will be. It is not specifically designed to a certain elevation or a certain style or anything to that effect, because I think, you know, that wants to come through another public process, but it kind of gives that sense of quality of what the development will ultimately look like. So as I mentioned, I'm sorry that I yelled across the room, this will be coming forward in a few months in terms of looking for their site plan approvals. And one thing I wanted to add, there has been a conversation that this cursory site plan, which is more tied to the development agreement itself in terms of understanding square footage, and like, for example, the oil change use will have to go through a special use permit. So it'll go through another kind of review in terms of understanding what those impacts are and what that type of oil change facility actually will involve. So there will be that discussion coming as well. So I wouldn't say, in my opinion, this does not approve any of these uses, nor does it approve the site plan specific.
So a special use permit goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission and then ultimately to the town council?
It does. It's a legislative act.
And
It
then
does.
the elevations, how is that processed?
Now, the Development Review Board is the sole board that will approve the site plan and the design of the buildings.
And that, DRB, the Development Review, Design Review Board?
Development Review Board.
That is, our P&Z sits on that board?
It
and
is.
they're public
Yes.
meetings?
Yes, it is. Yes, they are. It is a public meeting, yes. No, there will just be the Development Review Board meeting. We went through the neighborhood meeting process with the rezone. It's not necessary for this particular process, but there absolutely will be an opportunity for public input.
Okay, great. Other questions?
Okay, so we've been focused on the 49% tax concession to diversified partners with some questions relative to what those numbers were based on. I don't think that we've received sufficient information on that. I mean, it kind of sounds like projections, kind of pie in the sky, this is what we hope for. But I have a question about any other concessions. So is that the only concession we're making to diversified partners, or are there other concessions? And if so, what are they and how much are they?
Okay.
And that would include Carefree Water Company or anything else.
Fair enough. Mr. Popek?
Yeah, Mayor, Council, I'm just going to put the key retail sales tax, or the incentives back up. So the the three incentives that are involved here are the retail sales tax over the retail generation for the site, the construction sales tax on the initial development, and then there's a fee waiver, and that fee waiver is recoverable if they don't build.
Is there any concessions from the water company?
No,
Okay, no concessions from the water company.
not that I'm aware of.
No, there are none, I can tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. It does sound like kind of the run-of-the-mill strip mall to me. With the, if we think we're competing against the Walmart corner, and I'll just call it the Walmart corner because that's what it is, I can't see any medium to high-end retail going there. So I think we know what this is. It's another strip mall. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Charles Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I've lived here 12 years in Sentinel Rock Estates. I've noticed since then, my time here, town is losing businesses.
Oh, speak up, please.
I've noticed the town is losing businesses. The voters have rejected a tax for our ambulance, fire service. So we do need any form of business tax we can get to keep the town functioning properly. So I trust my representatives here that you will do right and ensure that we have a reasonably good business plan here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Charles. Ms. Lisa Rindy.
Lisa Rindy, also of Sentinel Rock. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Crane and former Mayor Les Peterson, current and past council members who have guided this process from the negotiations with the adjacent neighborhoods to get the commercial zoning in place. Now we have a project that meets these restrictions in that 2018 ordinance. A lot of the comments I've heard here have to do with what they want to see and that this is just another strip mall. We can wishful think whatever we want it to look like and what shops will come, but that's just wishful thinking. A more upscale hotel would come to town. Go ahead, wish away, we have a Hampton Inn. The reality is we have a workable development plan for the Carefree Quarter that doesn't require scrapping the 2018 ordinance or rezoning the parcel as the Thompson Thrift Project did. The $4.5 million to move the wash seems to be obviously an important hurdle that they couldn't get over. A revenue split of sales tax revenues is a win-win. It requires them to, or incentivizes them to generate more tax revenue, sales tax revenue, and more retail versus services. I'm not only in support of this project, but I'm also in support of the development incentive agreement to make this a solid revenue generator to help fund those non-negotiable expenses of public safety, roads, and other essential services. Once again, I thank you all for all you've done on this project.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have two more slips, and the slips are from the new council members, those who were recently elected. And so just a little background. So when we found ourselves having this on the agenda for approval, I wanted to make sure that the newly elects had an opportunity to be engaged and become as informed as anyone sitting up here. So we gave them access to Scott from Diversified Properties. I encouraged them to engage with the town staff, myself, with other council people, to get as educated as possible. So we'll call up the council members to speak, share their thoughts, ask questions, and we won't time them. So Ms. Diane Roth.
Diane Roth, councilman-elect. I'm guessing Tony Geiger didn't vote for me, call me crazy. And on that note, recently, before I start, there was an article in Carefree Truth, which was a piece of fiction, quoted Allison from Bosco's Biscuits in an imaginary conversation I had with her, and went on to infer that I had skated on my lease and my rent in my last business, where I was there 35 years. So they need to understand slander and libel, neither of which were true. My lease was paid in full. So I'd like to quick give you my retail background. I used to open stores for an English company. And before that, I'd opened stores for a private company before my own. I've opened stores in Connecticut, in Florida, the flagship store on 57th Street between Madison and 5th. So I do have a very strong retail background. I've been quoted in the New York Times several times, also in the New York Post, made TV appearances. So my whole career has been in retail. I was an economics major in college, but ended up falling into retail. I am not against this project. I am not against retail. I'm very much for retail. I recently had a meeting with the mayor, Stacy, Gary Neese, and Steve, where we were talking about the project. They also brought up my opinion on the Hampton Inn. And I pointed out that what had happened with the Hampton Inn, and one of the reasons I got elected, were expectations were toward a boutique hotel. They did not expect the Hampton Inn. Now, I understand everyone said prior to I moved here that you had posted somewhere pictures of what it was going to look like. I spent 2 years at the post office with 3 different initiatives. Not one person ever came up to me and said, "Oh my God, the Hampton Inn, I love it. It's just what I knew it was going to be." Everyone bitched about it. So I had said to them, what I feel is messaging is everything. Full transparency is everything. Including the residents is everything. You want to say to them, this is what it's going to look like. Even if you have to take a double spread in the Sonora News. People need to know and to feel they were part of the decision. Retail's hard. There's not a lot of retail being built. There's not a lot of bricks and mortar. So we have to put in that corner what is going to garner us the best cash flow, the highest and best return. And if that's a strip mall, then say that's a strip mall. You've got Walmart across the street. You've got Sprouts. When I met with Scott at Diversified, I said that to him. He showed me a rendering. I said, it's a strip mall. Your expertise is in low-end retailing. Stop saying high quality. You rent to Subway, True Value, Burger King, Baja Fresh, Starbucks, Wendy's, Panda Express, Do Not Donut, I guess, Reflexology, Nails, H&R Block. Get a manicure and get your taxes done. So say that's what it is. And if that's going to get us the biggest bang for our buck, I'm all in on it. But don't keep saying high-end retailing. That was my expertise. And also, don't call it Carefree Quarter. Scottsdale Quarter is ranked in the top 20 of open-air retail malls in this country. The Apple is one of their highest producers. It does $5,500 a square foot. So stop and think about that. So to say that we're going to be a mini Scottsdale Quarter is insulting and hurts us. People think it's in Cave Creek. Call it the Black Mountain Shops. But don't put that label on our town. Our town's a little boutique town. Don't tie it to a strip mall, which is fine if that's what we need. So all I'm asking is to go forward, be honest with the residents. Be honest about what you're putting in there. Be honest about what it's going to look like and what it's going to do to traffic. And I went through your impact study report, and Steve had said, oh, it's going to be $800 a square foot. No, when I break down what you guys did, you know, it doesn't come to that. It comes to $300 a square foot, $250, $319, $416, $400. Anyone can do what I did. The math is easy. You got a little calculator on your phone. It works great. So if that's what we're looking at, be honest. You know, say, it's going to be a strip mall. You're going to learn to love it. You can get an In-N-Out burger, or you can get a Burger King, or get your nails done, or reflexology. God knows it works. So be honest with us, and let's go forward with it. I'm not against it. So now you've heard it. Hello, not against it. For something that generates the money we need to support our town and to keep our downtown beautiful. So all in on that, but let us see what it looks like, and let us not have a strip mall that in 10 years is abandoned. And I have one question for Scott. What percentage of your square footage do you manage? How much square footage do you own right now that's built? Because you have a ton that's not built. Sure. I mean, you have more unbuilt and more unleased than you have leased. So how much square footage do you have leased, and how much are you managing? And how long, because you seem to build, stock it up, and sell and move on. You're a construction company. So, that's it.
Okay, well, thank you, Diane. So Steve, can you answer the question about productivity per square foot?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers that we came up with, I believe, were in the mid 500s. So that's what the impact analysis came up with as well.
Okay, about
So,
$500?
Yeah, square foot. 550 is where I think, or 556 or 552 is where she was.
Okay.
So yeah, but you know, to Ms. Roth's point, and you know, when we had this conversation, I'd like to say is that there's two things going on here, and we've been transparent about what this is going to be. I don't think anybody's ever said that this is going to be a high-end boutique type style development like Kierland or what's happened down the street. I think from day one when this was rezoned, we all knew what this was going to be. And I think that's what they're proposing is very in line with what is proposed for this particular site. Now, to her point, and I absolutely agree with her on this, it's not in Cave Creek. And so there's two things that we need to look at. And I know Stacy is very, is near and dear to her heart, is making sure, and I did, that how this thing looks is important. And while the market may be where only 5% or 3% of Carefree residents actually go to the place, it's going to really support Tatum Ranch and, you know, a larger market. It's still, you still look at it, and it's still going to be looking up against those homes, and it's still going to be looking up against the Black Mountain, and it is going to be a very big part of the fabric of Carefree. So, and I know Stacy has been very vocal about making sure that we maintain the quality. And so when we say quality, we're not saying high quality development, we're saying quality architecture and design and those types of things. Her point, layout and all that is going to be important. And so I'm glad she brought that up, and we get to answer and respond to that.
Okay, thank you. Scott, do you have any comments, especially low-end retailing? Is that your specialty?
No. So Diane came to my office, and we had a really good, long meeting. And I forget the gentleman that you brought with you. We sat down and talked through it, showed her what it's going to look like, the elevations that we submitted to the town. It's, from her point of view, she calls what I showed her a strip mall, but I call it a high-quality retail center. It's just in the eye of the beholder, I guess I'd call it. It's very similar to what was approved in 2018. Almost, we even had the same roof structure, the same roof linings. And that's the kind of projects that we do. We consider them really high quality. And Diane comes from a background of really, really good high-end retail. And this is not that. This is not going to be Gucci and Fendi and that kind of thing. This is going to be stuff that the people around us will use, around the center will use, that that people will go to and use. So it's not that super A quality, like I said, on the Michelin star restaurants. It's not that, and we're not saying it is. So I appreciate her very much, and I enjoyed my meeting with her very much as well.
Yeah, I would say one thing Diane said that was right on the mark is it's all up to all of us to set expectations and make sure people understand what's coming. So after it's done, they don't think, well, I thought this was coming, and look at it now. So I think that's very important for all of us to keep in mind going forward.
Yep, totally agree. Which is why I'm also hesitant to say tenants that don't have signed leases yet, because I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. You know, we'll be as open as transparent as we can.
Okay, great, thank you, Scott.
Mayor, just one.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just an observation. This has been Carefree Quarter ever since this project got rezoned in 2018. If we want to know what it looks like or what we thought it would look like, just an observation, we might look across the street behind the Chevron where Sprouts is, because all those stores in there is what we wanted. Unfortunately, we lost that because there was no water and they couldn't build, and we won't relitigate the past, but look across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, one thing I do want to mention as it relates to the site plan, originally they were talking about a larger box potential grocery, and because of BASHAs, we really wanted to limit down to the smaller footprint grocery type. So when you look at the site plan, you know, you're looking at something that's not going to be vastly large as far as any kind of grocery, and hopefully the idea is that everything is complementary. We don't want to take away from the town center. We don't want to take away from Carefree Marketplace, and we definitely don't want to compete against, you know, our local private businesses. We appreciate them, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, thank you.
So I would just like to make one comment, possible. I do take exception to
Diane's premise that we misled the community, or we were dishonest, or we weren't transparent about what the Hampton Inn was going to look like. It is well documented what the Hampton Inn looks like from the very first time it was proposed. There was never, ever, ever, never a picture of a Hampton Inn that was shown in your ad. That was never promised. It was never part of any discussion. So I take exception to that, because that's the premise, is that we've been dishonest, so now people shouldn't trust us on what we're doing here. And I find that offensive.
Offensive and divisive for somebody that's going to be joining the council next month, as opposed to building a bridge, Ms. Roth.
Yes, okay, okay. Anything else?
So we sat and we had illustrations of that hotel for months on end on Mr. Neese's desk. We had an opportunity, we opened it up to the public to review those illustrations, to weigh in. We asked people to come in. People didn't show up. We presented renderings at meetings. We talked about these things. The very evening when we voted to spend $1.8 million to put a water tank buried into the ground, 2 people were here.
Okay. Colleen Rose Skirty.
Thank you, Mayor Crane and Council. I appreciate all the information that you have provided to us, the council-elect, and the residents. Even though I am not an official council member until next month, you have provided me and the other council-elect members with copies of the development agreement and all supporting information. I was also able to meet with you, Mayor Crane, Gary, our town administrator, and Steve Prokopek, our economic development director, as well as with the developer of the Northeast Corner. I was able to ask any questions that I had and share any concerns I might have with the project. The town has been very transparent in this process, making all the information available to the residents. They have posted the information, emailed out the information, and have made themselves available to the residents for any questions or concerns. I commend the mayor and the town for making sure everyone has been informed and able to do their own research if desired. That process will continue throughout all of this, with plenty more opportunities for public input. I am in favor of this project and the development agreement as proposed. Carefree needs the development and the sales tax revenue that would be generated from the project. While I would love the project to be developed without the agreement and compensation back to the developer, it is not realistic to think that this is possible. The cost to deal with the wash and the street improvements needed are such that without the agreement, the developer cannot be successful financially on his end. We all know how prices for materials and such have dramatically increased. Without the agreement, the developer would not be developing our corner. Most likely they would move to the southeast corner, which is owned by Cave Creek. That corner does not have a wash and would be much easier to develop. The history behind that corner is that the previous owner would not allow Cave Creek to develop it. The owner has passed away and his kids now have it and have no issue allowing Cave Creek to develop it. I have heard concern from people about vacancies in other locations, and I understand that. But there are differences with some of those locations, like El Pedregal and Stagecoach Village. The businesses that have signed letters of intent for the Northeast Corner, I think would do well, and I do not know all of them. I've only heard of some, and I know that that will change. But I'm confident that the developer will obtain more businesses that will work well. I do strongly encourage them to keep them as high quality as possible, but I know that he has the motivation to make the Northeast Corner as successful as possible, as it will directly impact them financially. The more successful the businesses are, the better it is for Carefree and the developer. It would be financially irresponsible to lose this development, and who knows how long it would be to get another developer interested and the land developed. It could be years, if ever. The wash and needed improvements are not going away. Any developer will have to deal with them. We have one now that is very vested in the project and willing to take it on. We could have an income-generating project as early as 2026. How great would that be for Carefree? If I were currently seated on the council, I would vote yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor,
can I just add just one
Yeah,
more
go
thing?
right
I know,
ahead.
and it's a long process, but it's important. You know, I just wanted to say that as we looked to evaluate the economic development work plan, and we went through that process last year, we spent 4 months talking about what the priorities for economic development were for Carefree, and it was unanimous through the audience that spoke that this development of this corner was in conformance with the site plan to generate as much sales tax revenue, was of the utmost performance, and should be the only priority that economic development should work on. Now, it's not the only priority we've worked on, but it has been the primary focus. And I'd like to say, you know, hope that we listen to the residents that you heard and we approve that. And so I'm excited about this milestone we're at. We still have work to do. It's a milestone, but I think we achieved the goal that the community asked us to do.
Okay, well, thank you. So we have one other elected council member who's not here today, and that's Lon Johnson. So Lon, when he figured out his travel schedule, his plans, he thought the council meeting was on the 5th of November, and here we are on the 12th, and he isn't here. But what he did do is he provided me with a statement that I'll read to you, and we'll get to feel what's going through Lon's head. And Lon also spent time with Scott, and when he had access to all the documents and town staff and everything else to formulate his opinions. Developing the northeast corner of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road is a significant and much-needed proposition. We can all argue about the percentage of revenue sharing in the tax incentive agreement. However, 100% of nothing is a likely alternative to a sharing agreement. This highly visible corner has sat vacant for many years, and the residents have voiced their concerns for this lack of progress. I am excited that we, Carefree, are moving forward and have the ability to shape this project. I also know that much of the heavy lifting is yet to come. As the project moves forward, the new council and the town staff will have a significant role in the look and the feel of the final product, working closely with diversified products. The quality of the diversified partners. The quality of the occupants, along with the design and quality of the build, will truly define the ultimate success of the project. With the new council taking office on December 2nd, it would be appropriate that final approval vote would come from that elected council. Since the council election in April, we as council-elect have been included in the process and have solid understanding of the proposal. The new council will ultimately be judged by the success or failure of the Carefree Quarter. Therefore, they should put their stamp of approval on the project. With the residents of Carefree voting 3 new members onto the town council in April, this agreement would garner much more support if that newly elected council actually voted for the project's approval. With that said, I would ask the mayor and the council to table the approval until December 2nd. So my takeaway is Lon Johnson endorses the project, but he would rather have the opportunity to vote on it himself in December. And so I've thought about that. And I would just say something that John Nimsky shared with me, and that was that plans are plans, execution is everything. And so this new council, they have been, I believe they know as much as anybody up here about this project. And what's really going to make or break this is what we do going forward, right? We talked about an amendment to talk about insurance. There'll be other probably amendments, things to be discussed. There'll be items talked about the elevation, what that looks like. Even though it goes through DRB, this council will be sitting there, and there'll be a discussion about the special use permit on that oil changing station. There'll be many, many opportunities for the future council to put their fingerprints all over this thing. In fact, I would argue their impact will be greater than this council. Maybe the 2018 council, they approved the zoning, but the future is what's going to make or break this thing. So that's my opinion about the going forward. And I empathize with those who think the new council should do it. I get it, but we are where we are, and I think we've positioned the new council members to speak their minds, have a well-informed opinion, and they've shared them with us tonight. So having said that, that closes call to the public, or public comment. And so I would open it up to comments from council.
Yeah, I have a comment. what Councilman Michael Johnson said about look across the street at what it's going to look like, and I agree. We're not going to raise the bar much more than what we're seeing there. So what they're proposing is realistic for that property. With Stacy's involvement, we're going to try to raise the bar a bit, control the proportion and the look and the detailing. Maybe add more trees. In the end, this might be a more subtle project, a little more elegant, but it's not going to be much different from the nature of the tenants that surround that neighborhood. So I'm very much in support of this project.
Any other comments from council?
Thank you. That was well said. Thank you, that was well said. I've been with this since 2018 and put my heart and soul into this and rallied a lot of people to get that ordinance negotiated. Tonight is my last council meeting because I'm retiring. I'd love to leave with a vote that has this in place. I agree with Mayor Crane. I think the hand and footprints will be all over this thing from the new council. But this is a nice opportunity for us who started this job to finish this and open the gate. And I would propose, if we don't have any other comments, that we get on to the vote.
We may have another comment. You have a comment?
No, yes, like Councilman Johnson, this also is my final meeting, and I was part of the council that approved the rezoning on that corner. We've seen a lot of ebbs and flows through potential developers and sales and this and that, and this is our best opportunity in working with a visionary developer in wanting to share in getting this thing done and in creating an incentive agreement that pushes them to get the right type of development in there that will benefit the town from day one. Now, you have to make it shared because we could claim 100%, but 100% of nothing is nothing. So by a shared partnership, 5149, it will kickstart this development and finally put something there, and it will allow us to see this project through to fruition. The water's done, the zoning's done, everything is done, final stamp of approval. Now we can move forward and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no other comments, I would entertain a motion, and council, please make sure I get this right. I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2024-15, resolution of the Council of the Town of Carefree, Maricopa County, Arizona, authorizing the mayor to enter into the development agreement, Carefree Quarter, between the Town of Carefree and CCS Crossroads LLC, with the stipulation that a modification of Appendix E is subject to and approval by the town administrator.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's good. Yeah, and Exhibit E is just the insurance.
For those who don't, it's just the insurance appendix.
Councilman Johnson, do you want to take this?
Sure. I make the motion. Sorry. I make the motion that we approve, Resolution 2415, authorizing the mayor to sign the development incentive agreement between the town of Carefree and CCS Crossroads LLC.
Second.
With the stipulation.
With the stipulation.
That Exhibit E can be modified.
That
It must be approved by the town administrator.
Yes, sir, all of that.
I second the motion.
Make it legal.
Any other comments from council before we vote?
I just want to say that I think this is a great thing for the town. It'll be a great source of revenue. I think that Diversified Partners is a quality company, and personally, I feel really good about this.
Yeah, I agree. We're doing, we're embarking on a very good project which will help our community. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone here tonight, for your input. Item 11, review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2024-16, authorizing the mayor to enter into a maintenance agreement with CCS Crossroads LLC and Carefree Quarter. Oh, what do we just-
We're still meeting, everybody.
we still have another agenda item to go through. So you're free to get up and leave, but please take the conversation outside. We have to just hold our breath for a second.
Hey, excuse me, guys. Guys, sorry to interrupt. We're still in the meeting. We're talking another agenda, so if you don't mind. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, item number 11, review, discussion, and possible action to approve Resolution 2024-16, authorizing the mayor to enter into a maintenance agreement with CCS Crossroads LLC and Carefree Quarter Association for the maintenance of wash improvements to be dedicated to the town as required in the development agreement, Carefree Quarter, and authorize the town administrator to amend and approve Exhibit 3 of the maintenance agreement, operations and maintenance plan, to provide more detail as necessary prior to the final site plan approval for the wash improvements.
Mayor
Mr.
and Council,
Popelka.
Mayor, Council, appreciate it. I'll make this quick. You know, as part of the development agreement, and we're going to be dedicated to this wash improvement, which will be a public improvement. But as part of this, in lieu and part of getting the incentive package, they've agreed to do the maintenance ongoing for this. So the developer will maintain this, you know, basically as if it's part of their site, which is a win-win for the town that we get the open space and then we get the maintenance for that. And the reason that we're deferring, because we don't have the site plan 100% completed yet, so we don't know necessarily what the details of the maintenance are going to be. But the gist of it is that they're responsible for what's inside that wash area. I apologize. I'm losing it.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Well, any comments or questions from the council? It's pretty straightforward. And I think it's also important, maybe you said it and I missed it, this needs to be settled by the end of the year.
Correct.
Per the agreement we just approved in
Correct,
item
Mayor.
10.
Yep.
All right. Any comments or questions from council? So hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2024-16.
Vince?
Motion to approve Resolution 2024-16, authorizing the mayor to enter into a maintenance agreement with CCS Crossroads LLC and Carefree Quarter Association for the maintenance of wash improvements to be dedicated to the town as required in the development agreement, Carefree Quarter, and authorize the town administrator to amend and approve Exhibit 3 of the maintenance agreement, operations and maintenance plan, to provide more detail as necessary prior to the final site plan approval for the wash improvements.
Have a second? Okay. Any other comments before we vote? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 0. Okay, passes unanimously. Next up is call to the public. I have one slip. Ms. Jan Neal. No, that was public comment. This is called. So please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Almost 2 years was spent working on the general plan. Over 350 surveys were completed with significant time investment. After so much hard work by everyone, it is really disappointing that this is the final result. And what I mean by disappointing is that this should have gone with a landslide. But if this general plan is what the residents wanted, then it would have. So the town may have won the battle, but you're losing the war. And what I mean by that, with all due respect, is this was a resident-driven plan. But look at the numbers, and I'll refresh your memory here. If I can find it. Yes votes 1519, no votes 1160. That's significant, the no votes. So what I would please ask the town council and the mayor is that when we have a resident-driven plan, and then we end up with a vote, that we get a lot closer because we missed the mark. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That closes call to the public. So now I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Councilman Hatcher.
Thanks. Thank you.